We're looking at some passages now from the book of Daniel. In Christian Bibles, Daniel's one of the four major prophets, but in the Jewish arrangement of scriptures, he's found among the writings, the third and the least important section, along with Proverbs and Ruth and Esther and some things of that sort. The book of Daniel is in two parts. Chapters 1 through 6 are a collection of stories about Daniel and his friends, Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego. Chapters 7 through 12 are a collection of visions seen by Daniel. Part of the book is written in Hebrew, and part of it is in Aramaic, a Semitic dialect that was used all over the ancient Near East. Most of the Aramaic material is in the first 6 chapters, and the Hebrew is in the last 6. Some scholars argue that there would have been 2 authors, but most think there was just one. The author claims to be writing in the 6th century BC, shortly after the Babylonian destruction of Jerusalem. He predicts the fall of the Babylonians and the rise and fall of the Medes, Persians, Greeks. In the last couple of chapters, he gives very detailed prophecies about the activities of the king of the north and the king of the south. For a long time, modern interpreters said, well, the king of the north must be the Soviet Union. And then, whoops, after the Soviet Union fell, well, it must be Russia. Even in antiquity, though, many commentators recognize that this book was written in the 160s BC during the Jews' Maccabean revolt against the Seleucid Empire in Syria. The king of the north is the Seleucid kings. Remember, you're looking at it from the perspective of Jerusalem. The king of the north is the Seleucids. The king of the south is the Ptolemies in Egypt. The prophecies in the book are amazingly accurate down to 165 BC. After that, they don't get anything right. But that doesn't matter all that much, because the book isn't really prophetic. It is apocalyptic, a type of literature written during times when an author wants to encourage his audience to hold on, to endure hardships. He wants to give them the hope that God is going to make everything right, and it's going to happen very soon. That message could apply to the time of the Babylonian captivity, or it could apply equally well to the time of the Maccabean revolt. So we're going to read some selected passages now. As the passages we're reading get longer, the font gets smaller, but we'll see what goes on here. The king asked Daniel, also called Belteshazzar, "Are you able to tell me what I saw in my dream and interpret it?" Daniel replied, "No wise man, enchanter, magician, or diviner can explain to the king the mystery he is asked about. But there is a God in heaven who reveals mysteries. He has shown King Nebuchadnezzar what will happen in days to come. Your dream and the visions that passed through your mind as you were lying in bed are these. As your majesty was lying there, your mind turned to things to come, and the revealer of mysteries showed you what was going to happen. As for me, this mystery has been revealed to me, not because I have greater wisdom than anyone else alive, but so that your majesty may know the interpretation, and that you may understand what went through your mind." Then King Nebuchadnezzar fell prostrate before Daniel and paid him honor, and ordered that an offering and incense be presented to him. The king said to Daniel, "Surely your God is the God of gods and the Lord of kings and a revealer of mysteries, for you are able to reveal this mystery." And the king placed Daniel in a high position and lavished many gifts on him. He made him ruler over the entire province of Babylon and placed him in charge of all its wise men. Moreover, at Daniel's request, the king appointed Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego administrators over the province of Babylon, while Daniel himself remained at the royal court. King Nebuchadnezzar made an image of gold 60 cubits high and 6 cubits wide, and set it up on the plain of Dura in the province of Babylon. At this time, some astrologers came forward and denounced the Jews. They said to King Nebuchadnezzar, "May the king live forever. Your majesty has issued a decree that everyone who hears the sound of the horn, flute, zither, lyre, harp, pipe, and all kinds of music must fall down and worship the image of gold, and that whoever does not fall down and worship will be thrown into a blazing furnace. But there are some Jews whom you have set over the affairs of the province of Babylon, Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego, who pay no attention to you, your majesty. They neither serve your gods nor worship the image of gold you have set up." Furious with rage, Nebuchadnezzar summoned Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego. So these men were brought before the king. And Nebuchadnezzar said to them, "Is it true, Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego, that you do not serve my gods or worship the image of gold I have set up? Now when you hear the sound of the horn, flute, zither, lyre, harp, pipe, and all kinds of music, if you are ready to fall down and worship the image I made, very good. But if you do not worship it, you will be thrown immediately into a blazing furnace. Then what God will be able to rescue you from my hand?" Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego replied to him, "King Nebuchadnezzar, we do not need to defend ourselves before you in this matter. If we are thrown into the blazing furnace, the God we serve is able to deliver us from it, and he will deliver us from your majesty's hand. But even if he does not, we want you to know, your majesty, that we will not serve your gods or worship the image of gold you have set up." Then Nebuchadnezzar was furious with Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego, and his attitude toward them changed. He ordered the furnace heated 7 times hotter than usual, and commanded some of the strongest soldiers in his army to tie up Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego and throw them into the blazing furnace. So these men, wearing their robes, trousers, turbans, and other clothes, were bound and thrown into the blazing furnace. The king's command was so urgent and the furnace so hot that the flames of the fire killed the soldiers who took up Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego. And these 3 men, firmly tied, fell into the blazing furnace. Then King Nebuchadnezzar leaped to his feet in amazement and asked his advisors, "Weren't there 3 men that were tied up and that we tied up and threw into the fire?" They replied, "Certainly, your majesty." He said, "Look, I see 4 men walking around in the fire, unbound and unharmed, and the 4th looks like a son of the gods." Nebuchadnezzar then approached the opening of the blazing furnace and shouted, "Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego, servants of the Most High God, come out, come here." So Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego came out of the fire, and the satraps, prefects, governors, and royal advisors crowded around them. They saw that the fire had not harmed their bodies, nor was their hair of their heads singed. Their robes were not scorched, and there was no smell of fire on them. Then Nebuchadnezzar said, "Praise be to the God of Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego, who has sent his angel and rescued his servants." They trusted in him and defied the king's command and were willing to give up their lives rather than serve or worship any god except their own God. Therefore I decree that the people of any nation or language who say anything against the God of Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego be cut into pieces, and their houses be turned into piles of rubble, for no other God can save in this way. Then the king promoted Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego in the province of Babylon.